Wolfgang Van Halen's transformation is taking the world by storm, and for good reason. As the son of one of the greatest guitarists in history, Eddie Van Halen, Wolfgang was born into the heart of rock and roll royalty. Yet, rather than living in the shadow of his father's monumental legacy, he's carved out a powerful and distinct identity of his own. His journey from being a quiet young musician in his father's iconic band to becoming a bold, chart-topping artist in his own right has been nothing short of inspirational. Through perseverance, immense talent, and a deep respect for his family's history, Wolfgang has become a force that is redefining what it means to carry a legendary name while still forging an original path. His musical evolution, physical transformation, and emotional resilience have captured the attention of fans across generations, proving that he's not just Eddie's son, he's a rock phenomenon in his own right. When Wolfgang first stepped into the spotlight, many didn't know what to expect. He was young, barely in his teens, when he began joining his father and uncle Alex Van Halen during rehearsals. Soon after, he made music history by becoming the bassist for Van Halen in 2006, replacing the legendary Michael Anthony. At just 15, Wolfgang was thrown into one of the biggest rock bands on the planet. It was an enormous responsibility for someone so young, but Wolfgang handled it with grace and maturity beyond his years. He learned not only to perform on massive stages, but also to deal with the intense scrutiny that came with stepping into such a massive role. Critics and fans alike questioned whether he could fill the shoes of a seasoned bassist. But Wolfgang didn't let the noise shake his focus. He worked relentlessly, honing his craft and earning respect through sheer talent and dedication. Over time, he proved that he was more than capable, not just a replacement, but a musician who could hold his own in a band that defined an era. However, the true transformation of Wolfgang Van Halen didn't stop there. After Van Halen's final tour in 2015 and the devastating passing of his father in 2020, Wolfgang faced one of the most challenging periods of his life. Eddie Van Halen wasn't just his dad, he was his mentor, his bandmate, and his biggest hero. Losing him meant losing the person who had shaped much of Wolfgang's identity, both as a musician and as a man. Yet, instead of letting grief consume him, Wolfgang turned his pain into art. That was the moment the world began to see a new side of him. The artist who was ready to step out of the shadows and show the depth of his own voice. In 2021, Wolfgang released his debut album under the band name Mammoth WVH, a tribute to Mammoth, the name of the early band that would later become Van Halen. The album was a revelation. Wolfgang played every instrument himself, guitar, bass, drums, and vocals, and wrote every song. It was a deeply personal project, one that captured his emotions after his father's passing, while also showcasing his extraordinary musicianship. The hit single Distance, written as a tribute to Eddie Van Halen, struck a powerful chord with fans. The heartfelt lyrics and raw emotion of the song brought listeners to tears, and it quickly climbed to the top of the Billboard charts. Distance wasn't just a song, it was a farewell letter from a son to his father. The music video, filled with touching family footage, gave fans a glimpse into their close relationship and reminded the world that behind the legend of Eddie Van Halen was a loving, father and son bond that was unbreakable. That emotional honesty became the defining feature of Wolfgang's music. Unlike the glam and excess of the classic Van Halen era, Mammoth WVH focused on authenticity, introspection, and heart. Wolfgang wasn't trying to replicate the sound that made his father famous. Instead, he was creating his own brand of modern rock. His songs combined heavy guitar riffs with melodic hooks, soulful vocals, and deeply relatable